Seminar. Welcome. Thank you very much for attending this seminar. My name is Ronjon Nag. I'm Wolfson College, 1984. We'll talk about how to create a pitch. And let's start here. I'm going to sort of show my deck. And let's see how this works. Let's have a look. Great. And yeah. Great to be here. So let's talk about this series. My understanding there is the Wolfson College Entrepreneurship Competition. And to go alongside with that, I agreed to give a series of talks to talk about how to actually make a great presentation. And so this will be a series of talks over the next couple of months. And this week's talk will be on how to make a pitch. In subsequent talks, we'll talk about financing, kind of structures of actually financing a company, convertible debt, common stock, preferred stock, US models, UK models. We'll then go on to how to create a team. Should you have one co-founder, two co-founders, be yourself, etc. And then finally, product market fit. What kind of features should your product have to get best resonance for investment? Right, so I'm president of R42, a little bit about that. R42 is a venture fund. We have over 50 companies that invested in, usually in the AI space, biotech side. Usually the common theme is what I call tough tech, difficult technology, difficult for people to replicate. And we also have the R42 Institute. We have lectures and seminars and give a free AI course in the summer for anybody who might be interested. And we have a founders program as well. And so there are opportunities to be a mentor or actually create a company within R42 or just work on projects that we work on. So who am I? As I said, I'm Wolfson 84. I think at that time we only had like 250 students in college. And really, I went to MIT after my PhD in engineering, working on speech recognition. Then went to MIT to work on, do a management science degree. My undergraduates at Birmingham in electrical engineering. And pretty much after my education, no one would hire me, so I had to start companies, and mainly in the mobile space. First one was Lexicus, we'll talk about that, Solmania, and then VocalIQ, which is also, I was more the advisor, and that was also started by Blaise Thompson, who is a Wolfson graduate too. I'm at Stanford these days as a fellow as well, looking at intelligence in humans, animals and machines. You know, as we make machines clever and clever, at what point do we think they actually have some degree of humanity, if ever? And fellow at the Center for the Study of Language Information. And so what I've done, lots of inventions and worked on lots of products in my career, either as a startup or as part of corporate America. Done a lot of work in China, worked on Chinese handwriting recognition, Chinese speech recognition, invented the mobile app store in 1999. Where did I get my inspiration from? It's really from Star Trek. So the first thing as you're thinking of your company is thinking what is going to inspire you. Is there a model out there that's already there that can be a equivalency to how you're explaining it to an investor or a customer? I give a whole talk on AI and on the growth of AI. I teach an introductory AI class. This is one of my first products, which was a speech recognizer to do connected digit recognition, where you can speak digits with no pauses in between. That's quite common. It's not known as a problem today, but in those days, the processing power was so small that we had to actually have a gap in between in speaking the words. Worked on this laptop that had speech recognition in it, so you could speak words into a laptop. This is in 1984, just as I was arriving at Wolfson. I spent the summer working on this, and this could actually only recognize about 4,000 words and 64 words at a time. But it's one of the earliest embodiments in a actual computer where you could actually speak into a machine and control menus and the like. The company that I did after Cambridge and MIT was Lexicus, which did handwriting recognition. And a bit like the speech recognition, we could handle connected letters, cursive letters, so you didn't know where one letter began, one letter ended. And that got me on the cover of Fortune magazine, which 3 months later we got acquired. And our peak, we were only 3 people. So it's possible to be quite successful with a very small group. And we'll talk about that later in product market fit. VocalIQ started by Blaise Thompson, also a Wolfson graduate. I was more the advisor in that company. The chairman was Professor Young at the engineering department, who started that company. He was my PhD examiner. And so there are many examples across the Cambridge ecosystem and at Wolfson where people have started their ventures and made them successful. So let's talk about the pitch deck. And really, this is not just for the Wolfson competition, but for also any meeting that you might have with an investor or a angel group. You should find there's 2 formats. One is an investor where you may have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe as long as an hour to discuss your topic. Then you've got these kinds of competitions or angel groups, which is typically usually at maximum 20 minutes, usually 10 minutes presentation and 10 minutes Q&A, and as little as 2 minutes. So really, you have to actually structure your deck to handle that full spectrum from 2 minutes to 1 hour. And regardless of the time you have, you've really got to get the actual ask into the presentation. How much money you're raising, what are you raising it for, and what's the problem? In this structure, often people put the team at the beginning. I prefer it to at the end because I really want to get into what the product is. Often young companies who haven't really quite figured out their market or their product often put the team earlier, saying, look, we're smart guys and you should just bet on us because we're smart and we haven't quite got the solution yet. But I think if you force yourself to come up with the problem and the solution first, that actually generates the company a bit further along. So the first thing is, coming up with this elevator pitch, and this is taken from the Founders Institute. This is also something you can use in emails when you're sending to investors, and it's very simple. You just fill in the gaps. My company, Lexicus, is developing cursive handwriting recognition to help mobile phone users enter text with our neural network implementation. That would be my sort of kind of thing, and we could probably fix some of those things. Like who knows what neural networks are? Maybe replace that with artificial intelligence or machine learning. But you have a key summary of what the company is, and this is a little game called Mad Lib, where you can just fill in the gaps as a start. And this might often be your first slide as a what your thesis is. And then if you're sending an email, you might actually use that in an email and fill in the other Mad Lib components, fill in gaps. And by the way, anyone who wants these slides, you can just send me an email or send Thomas an email and we can get you these slides. So you don't have to take screenshots if you need to. My email's on every slide. So ronjon@r42group.com. So by having these answers, you really have to be very, very crisp, and shorter is better than longer. There's a temptation to throw the kitchen sink about who we are, what we're doing, and my resume, and I did this and I did that. And and the like, we would actually sort of push this through. Point three, sometimes you could use or not use. Often if you're doing deep tech, you may not have any competitors. Sometimes you may want to mention the competitors. Why advertise them? Let the investor ask you for that information. So we then go on to the actual presentation slides. What is the problem, the solution? Have you actually got any customers? And let's sort of go through these things. So first of all, the problem. The problem is, what is the problem? Who is it for? Now, is it difficult? And what is our secret sauce? Why is it that we can do it that no one else can do it? And the problem could be a ecosystem problem, like a sort of an e-commerce site, or a two-sided marketplace, a company like eBay, or it could be actually a technology problem, which is the things I worked on, like handwriting recognition or speech recognition. And so go to the next page. Well, how have we solved it? What's our secret sauce? Why hasn't this been done before? Why is it hard? There's a common question as an investor. I'm a very active investor. I said, okay, so tell me why this is hard. Why is it this hard? And where are you going to deploy it? Who's going to use it? And the next comment is, well, okay, there's different thresholds of investment. The first level is we're just a team, and we're smart, and we can do various things, and this is a space we want to work on. The second one, we've identified the problem, and we want to work on this. Third level, we identified the solution. We've got the solution. Next level is, do we actually have a prototype that anyone can use? Anyone can use it for free, or can they pay us even a modest amount for it? What I would like is someone to actually pay us something for it, even if it's a small amount, and get the feedback. Getting feedback from real customers is really important. And there's a concept known as an anchor customer that we need to actually get going. So basically, they're telling us we want customers to beat us up, to tell us what works, what doesn't work, and how to improve it. Market size. This is a slide taken from one of the companies. They're saying they're trying to sell a educational kit, and they're saying that look, there's thousands of people who could use it, but we're going to look at the people within labs. There's 1 million labs out there, and there's a US market, because I'm based in the US here in Palo Alto, California. And then what percentage of that market could we get? Trying to sort of itemize that down to what is our market, how much could we sell it for? Starting to show the product, what can the product actually do? Then showing our customer segmentation within our market size. Where could you actually sell this to? What I like typically is more graphics than words, though even though my slides have a lot of words, but it's better to be more disciplined. The business model, you start looking at the business model, trying to think about what does it cost to actually make our product, how much can we sell our product for, and then how does it scale with volume. So as you have volume, you increase the revenue, of course, but you also decrease the cost. The key component here is, what are the key performance indicators? Now, what are the metrics that we need to measure our business with? And then how do those metrics compare with other similar kinds of businesses? They may not have the same exact technology, but for example, if you have an e-commerce site and you're selling chemical reagents, how does that sell with another e-commerce site that's selling machine learning libraries, for example, or maybe something that's more different, maybe biological modules. Trying to multiply that out, how does that map out to the total revenue? A commentary on competition. Who is the competition? Usually saying there's no competition doesn't usually sit well. Even if you have no competition, you may have proxies for competition. It implies that you may not have thought out your plan sufficiently if you say, I have no competition. So competition slide is important. Mapping it out in pluses and minuses against different dimensions. It can be a picture. It can be simply putting the names out there and giving some dynamics about their feature set or their pricing structure that could help, but addressing it is important. The team, typically early stage companies have a small set of team members. It can be as little as just one founder. Often investors like 2 as a minimum, but it's not required. 2 as a minimum often is because if one of the founder leaves, then there's still another one there. As you get to 4 or 5, that usually considers is a little on the large side. So usually 2 or 3 is considered an optimum number. The biggest risk in teams, or one of the biggest risks in startups, is team disruption, where teams fall apart. So therefore, having an advisory board, sometimes in biotech companies, I see that very common. Key opinion leaders on an advisory board, somebody who's willing to put their reputation behind your idea. Often that helps. Often a diversified advisory board, different disciplines, different genders, maybe even different countries, helps. For non-biotech companies, I think it's like nice to have, may not be necessary. Often I'm quite cynical about advisory boards because often they've not put money into your company, and I'm looking to see if the advisors have put money into your company, particularly if they're rich. And if they haven't, why haven't they? There's various models out there that you can use. I don't usually see these things in pitch decks formulated as a canvas, but often they're broken out. So you can take components of a business model canvas and break them out and put them in your pitch deck in the relevant sections. But this is a good framework to think about your model. And finally, at the end, you've got to actually say, well, what are you actually looking for? So, people don't beat around the bush. How much are you looking for? What's the investment amount? What are you going to use it for? How much runway will it give you? Runway meaning how many months will you actually have to actually survive on this funding? Usually, you don't usually put the valuation in the slide deck. Usually that's a discussion point, but one needs to be prepared to answer that question verbally. So these are the standard components of a pitch deck. Then you've got to say, okay, well, I'm going to present this. How do I present it? And so I said that normally you have between 2 minutes and an hour to make the presentation, and everywhere in between. And then you have other ways of presenting it, typically to via email. Now there's systems like DocSend and ShareFile where you can put it in a link, and so if they've downloaded it. There's a debate on whether you use systems like that, because clearly you're making the investor do a little bit of extra work to actually download it, because they've got to click on it. Often they have to put their name and email address on it. But the trend is now to use one of those systems, because if somebody actually does load it, they've loaded it, they've looked at it, and that gives you more information than if you just simply send the deck over. Often you'd send the email ahead of time. Sometimes you'd include usually an email with a link to the deck. Sometimes people just send the email first and try and get interest before they ask the investor to send the deck first. The general trend now is investors really often want the deck first, to speed up the discussion during the meeting. And I know this is a competition, but if you're meeting investors directly, this is sort of the bait. You basically have, regardless whether you've got an hour or whether you've got 2 minutes, you really only have 2 minutes at the beginning to get them interested at the beginning. That very first slide, which is why I think you should sort of spend it on the what your product does, as opposed to going through the resumes of the 4 team members and the 6 advisors. You will see that many of the investors have seen many decks, and if you can ask them, have you gone through the deck? If they have, then you should sort of jump much quicker into your product statement and the business problems. If they have not, then you can go through in a normal pace. So when you're talking, you need to have bite-sized chunks of information that they can think about and store in their brain. So when they talk to their colleagues, often these investment firms are not just one person, but rather they are a group of people, and they need the person who's met with you has to explain it to their colleagues, and he needs to be able to explain it in simple language. That means you need to explain it in simple language to him. Really got to figure out a little bit of the nature of the investor that you're talking to. So if you're talking to a large venture firm, they may not be looking at checks less than 5 million, less than 20 million, sometimes less than 100 million, right? The SoftBank Vision Fund, which is run by one of my classmates, the minimum check is 100 million. If you're talking to an angel group, it's a few 100,000. So you don't want to ask them for 100 million for a check. You've got to match what you want to for resonance. So what am I thinking about when you're pitching your deck, right? So as I said before, what you're pitching is, is this actually a problem, right? So I heard a deck the other day which is plant-based baby milk, and I was thinking, okay, well, there are there are vegans, of course, who are very keen on this, but there are billions of babies that have been run on fed milk, powdered milk, and there's lots of critique on it. But is it actually a main thing that people are thinking about of trying to extract? So is this a problem? How big is that segment? Does it actually gel together? Does the story gel together? Is there a non sequitur? Is someone actually paid something for it already, a prototype? And then if they are paying for it, is it profitable? If it costs me, $5,000 to make, and I only can sell it for $4,000, then how can I actually make any money? Then often there'd be an argument is designed for manufacturing. You have to make it cheaper. Well, how viable is that? And usually it's just in the first few minutes, first 5-10 minutes, where people are actually thinking about, okay, this resonates, I like it, I want to learn more. Or really, they're saying really no, and they're just really being polite for the rest of the session. The other thing is you need to be likable, personable, articulate. You need to be passionate about your product as well. But also that you're humble, you're willing to listen. Investors hate arrogance. They hate too much, particularly at the early stage, saying, look, this is a slam dunk, this is obvious, right? This kind of tone. They like being objective and say, look, by definition, if we're at the early stage, there's got lots of issues that we've got to figure out. Being honest about them and intellectual about them and analytical about them is probably an approach to go through. There are loads of decks online. You can sort of Google some of these things, some of the templates, but there are loads of decks online of famous companies who've actually made their seed round decks available. And so you can look at those, and you can send me a question at any time if you've got any comments. And so I will stop there. And I think we'll stop there. And I'm not sure if we have any questions on comments and the like to actually make any to answer. But we actually I think we've actually finished now. So are there any questions? Right, no questions at the moment. So let's complete that. And if anyone's got any questions, send me an email at ronjon@r42group.com, and we can. I'll do my best to answer. So thank you very much. Have a nice dinner if you're in the UK, or if you're in another part of the world. Let me know, and we can connect. Thank you very much.